They canned the teacher.
Sounds like a real winner.
They canned the teacher, and we moved to Ember, Oregon, to take over Grandma's hotel. She was old and sick. I was 14 years old. It was October the 10th, 1916, when we arrived in Ember. We loved our new house in Ember. Our new home in Ember. We attended the Methodist Church. I picked Veda Squires as my chum. Her dad owned the garage. I took the 8th grade over under Mr. Connors, a fine teacher. He had me take final exams in January instead of waiting till May. I passed very high grades in everything. The following year, I entered high school. I loved school. It was always easy for me to learn. I had lots of dates and lots of fun. Well, I did. I started going with my future husband in my senior year. He was a Mormon, and Mom hit the ceiling. But in 3 or 4 months, she got to liking him. I would play the piano, and he and I would sing. He had a pretty tenor voice, and I also sang alto. This won Mother over. She loved it. I was a telephone operator for 5 years. I loved this job. Mom and Dad sent me to Monmouth College for 3 months to break up my romance with this Mormon. But I came home in June and married him. June the 21st, 1922. We went to Portland Rose Festival on our honeymoon and bought furniture. He had just bought a brand new Maxwell car, so we wanted to try it out. He had bought a home and had it ready to move into while I was down at college. I loved keeping house.
Well, Mother, before you go ahead, didn't he give you a choice of what you wanted to do for a wedding trip? Someone told me that you wanted, that he offered to take you to the...
He offered to take me to the Yellowstone Park.
Right.
Or to the Rose Festival and buy furniture. So I took the Rose Festival because I wanted furniture for my home.
Uh-huh.
Was you taking that down?
Yeah.
Oh. After 1 month of marriage, I had my grandma come up and teach me how to make light bread, as my mother was thinning apples and couldn't do it. I had wonderful luck with it. I went to the Mormon church and was real happy. Mom taught me how to can fruit, and winter came. You can't believe how fast I learned. My cellar was full of canned fruit, jams and jellies, pickles of all kinds. We had a barrel of sauerkraut made up. I even made a large jar of mincemeat and canned it up. Mother loaned me her sewing machine, and I made some of Naoma's school clothes. I forgot to mention that Ross had a little girl 6 years old when I married him. Mm-hmm. Ross would never give me a compliment on anything, but he'd go to the barber shop and brag me up. No end. 1 or 2 of the guys would tell me what he said. I always let Naoma bring her little friends home for Sunday dinner. We always had a house full of company. I loved to sew for her and fix her pretty little dresses to wear. We lived here 3 years, bought about 2 or 3 acres across from Annie Weston's school, and built a new house, and went into fur business. Ross went to Alaska to to the Aleutian Islands and bought fox and mink in 1925. We had a dear little boy born, Wendell. He kept me on my toes for several years. That kid was into everything. Don't ask me how I lived through it. In spite of all of this, he brought a lot of love into our home. Naoma loved him to death. He started to play by ear on the piano like I did. His dad wrestled him a piano teacher, Kip Larson. He only took a few months till he could play everything.
I was playing sheet music when I was in the 5th grade.
Was you?
Uh-huh.
I forgot to tell you, when Wendell was 4 years old, we bought 20 acres behind Pete Wessensko's place and moved up there on a fox farm. Had a
Go ahead.
Had a nut move the house. He tore it all to pieces. He just shook the whole house to pieces.
Uh-huh.
The wind blew so terribly up here. We only stayed there 4 years. Then we moved to the mountains behind Somerville in the fall of 1929.
Mother, okay.
Depression was starting to set in. We bought a place across from Creek Ruckman and Mother's place. Started up a new farm the summer of 1933. Wendell was 6 years old at this time. We were blessed with another dear little boy. He was born about the time they rang the 8:30 school bell in Ember.
Just a minute.
And I started to sing, "Hurry up, ye lads and lasses, be not late for books and classes, ding dong bell." A song I had learned in school when I was a little girl. The doctor said, "My, she's singing a different tune than she was," because I'd been carrying on to something terrible while that baby was being born. Soon the baby come. It was our little boy Merrill. When he was 4 years old, we bought another 20 acres and a house behind Frank Perry's place. We moved all our junk up there. Only stayed there a short time, then we moved to Elgin, up in the canyon where Edna Rush lives. We had about 17 acres and a new home. Nelda and Deanna were both born here. Nelda came 1937, born about 6 o'clock in the evening. At last I got my little girl.
Where was she, Mom, where was she born? In Elgin, wasn't it?
Right in our home.
Yeah.
Then 2 years later, another dear little girl came along, Deanna. I said, "That's it, no more." With clubfoot. Soon as I weaned her, we took her down to Shriner Hospital. Had to leave her 4 months. That was so hard to have to give up our baby, but it was all for the best. 2 years later, we had another dear little girl, Deanna. Well, I already told about her.
But you said, you didn't really goof because you said 2 years later, I think, and then you went on
Yeah.
to say about Nelda being born with the clubfoot.
You ready?
Yes.
In those days, Ross barbered and didn't come home for lunch, so I had all day to enjoy the children. the little Bots boys came over a lot. The children loved living up there. That's all I wrote. Well, now we got to start bringing Wendell into the story. That's all I've got.
Okay.
Just a minute. What year was it when you went to LeGrand? Was that your freshman year?
Sophomore year.
But I think it was the year I was born, or I was a year old, wasn't I?
But Mother, when I went to LeGrand, I went down to Lincoln High School in September for a month or so, and then I came back and finished in
Well, couldn't you put that in the story?
Well, and finished.
About your part,
Well, sure. I finished in Elgin.
because I don't know anything about all your antics.
All right, and then
Well, let me go on. Should we put that in first before we go to Grandma about the hotel?
well, I don't care. Whatever you want to do.
Time Wendell was ready for his sophomore year in school, and Elgin School was having money problems. So they ruled music out and kept sports on. And Wendell was so heart sick about it, he decided to go to LeGrand High School. So he stayed with his Aunt Irma and worked part-time at a restaurant and took his sophomore year
Yeah, that was
in
my
high school.
Right.
While he was up there, he dreamed up a lot of big ideas, and when school was off, unbeknownst to us, he caught a ride with his Aunt Irma, who was going to California to visit some of her children,
Ethel.
and he rode down with them, and was gone about 2 weeks, and one day a man came in from California and got a haircut, and he said to my husband,
Mama, look at me. Okay, that's
he
better.
said to my husband, he said, your son is doing fine. Ross said, what? He said, your son is doing fine. He has a good job and he's doing fine. And Ross said, well, who are you talking about? He said, I'm talking about your son Wendell. And Ross says, well, where is he? Well, he says he's living at our house in California and working at someplace there.
Safeway. Safeway.
And Ross was, as soon as he finished with this fellow, he come up to the house and he was smoking when he come through that kitchen door. He says, do you know where that kid of ours is? I says, no. He's in California. He's got him a job working and he's staying at Eva.
I can't remember Eva's last name.
Eva's husband's and her boy's home. He says, I'm going to LeGrand and get a hold of the cops and I'm going to have that little boy brought home here in a hurry. I'll teach him. I said, no, you're not. I said, if you do a thing like that, you'll embarrass him so bad he'll never have a thing to do with us as long as he lives. I said, let him alone. So we never seen Wendell anymore, only for visits for several years. He went from California to New York City and lived there how many years?
5.5.
5.5 years. And the highlights of our life during that period of time was the beautiful gifts he sent home all the time to the children and I. Pretty little clothes and pretty dresses. Kids would be thrilled to death every time a package came. And of course his visits to and from. And then he finally decided to leave New York and come back to LeGrand and go to college and prepare himself to teach, which he did. I'd like to go back a little bit to the time when we moved to Ember and took over my grandma and grandpa's big